Welcome, Nathan with Corporate Education at Lake Area Tech. We are going to go through your pre-trip inspection today for the process of obtaining a Class A commercial driver's license. This covers a process we use at Lake Area Tech, which is derived from South Dakota, and other states may vary slightly. So we're going to begin with our physical pre-trip inspection, which covers many parts and inspection points that we have in the process. The points of inspection make sure that things are not cracked, damaged, or loose, also referred to as CDL, as you've seen many times. And if there are fluids, that they're holding the fluids and pressure is obtaining the pressure within. We're also going to cover many hoses and rubber parts in this inspection, making sure that there are no abrasion, bumps, or cuts, also referred to as ABS. We need to make sure everything is structurally sound, there's no frame damage or legal welds, and that all parts are properly mounted with structurally sound hardware, and making sure that that hardware is not worn or corroded. The examiner will also provide you with a basic overview checklist that you will be able to use in the process for your pre-trip inspection for the Class A CDL as that resource. Any further questions can be used to find information on this at the Corporate Education CDL page at lakeareatech.edu. Alright, the first step is starting with the front of the truck. On the front of the truck, the first thing we're going to do is kind of do the overall inspection of everything and making sure we're recognizing if there's anything that's out of the ordinary. From there, we then start on our marker lights, checking your front marker lights up on top, making sure they're not cracked, damaged, or loose, and of the proper color. Then we move down to the side mirrors, which are attached to the doors of the truck, making sure they are not cracked, damaged, or loose on both sides. From here, we then go to our windshield portion, making sure the windshield is not cracked, damaged, or loose. We move down to our hood mirrors on both sides, making sure they're not cracked, damaged, or loose. Moving further down, we get to our headlights, our marker lights, and our blinker lights on both sides, making sure they're not cracked, damaged, or loose, and of the proper color. Moving further down, we look into the bumper, making sure the bumper is not cracked, damaged, or loose, and properly fastened. Down to the license plate portion, making sure our license plate is not cracked, damaged, or loose. And then do a general observation of the overall truck, making sure it is not leaning to one side or another, and making sure we don't have any visible leaks underneath. Next step is leaning under the hood, so we're going to make sure both clips are unfastened on both sides, and gently pull up the hood, making sure it's not caught, and we'll start on the passenger side. Now we're going to begin on the passenger side. You should always start with a general overview, making sure you don't see anything cracked, damaged, or loose, or leaking visibly from your perspective. Then we start with our radiator, make sure our radiator is not cracked, damaged, or loose, and since it holds fluid, it's visibly not leaking from anything you can see. Then you have your hoses on top and bottom from your radiator, making sure there's no abrasions, bumps, or cuts, and is not leaking. Looking then to your antifreeze reservoir, making sure it is not cracked, damaged, or loose, not leaking, your cap is properly fastened, and you have proper levels for your antifreeze reservoir. And your hoses to and from to your reservoir do not have abrasions, bumps, or cuts, and since it also holds fluid, they are also not leaking. Then we move down to your alternator, making sure your alternator is not cracked, damaged, or loose, and this is belt driven. Going also to the alternator belt, making sure that is properly fastened. It has no cuts, frays, and no more than 3/4 inch of play. And we get down to your water pump, making sure your water pump is not cracked, damaged, or loose, and also not leaking. This is also belt driven, so inspecting the belt on that, making sure there is no cuts or frays, and it does not have more than 3/4 of an inch of play. And then also the hoses to and from your water pump have no abrasions, bumps, or cuts, and are not leaking. Now we're going to move over to the driver's side. First off, you should always give a general overview, making sure you don't see anything that is cracked, damaged, or loose, or leaking. First place we're going to start is our power steering reservoir, making sure it is not cracked, damaged, or loose, or leaking. Cap is properly fastened and in place, and it is at the proper level. From there, we look at our hoses from our power steering reservoir to and from, no abrasions, bumps, or cuts, and not leaking as it's holding fluid. Leading down into our power steering pump, down in here, not cracked, damaged, or loose, or leaking. And this is gear driven, so there will be no belts attached to that. And then the hoses to and from, no abrasions, bumps, or cuts, and they are not leaking. Leading into our oil fill, making sure our cap it is not cracked, damaged, or loose, and it is properly fashioned, cap properly installed. And then going to our dipstick, making sure we pull the dipstick out, clean it off, insert the dipstick back in, pull back out, and read to make sure you are at a proper level for your oil level. And then from here, this leads to our steering shaft, making sure it is not cracked, damaged, or loose, and making sure there is no more than 10 degree of play. And then from there, we double check both of our U-joints on the top and bottom, making sure they are not cracked, damaged, or loose, and they are properly greased. So looking at our power steering gearbox, making sure it's not cracked, damaged, or loose, nor leaking, and checking the hoses to and from, making sure they have no abrasions, bumps, or cuts, and are not leaking. Alright, starting back, looking at our power steering gearbox, we then take that down to our 3-piece steering linkage, making sure that's not cracked, damaged, or loose, no illegal welds, checking both castle nuts, making sure they're properly fastened and the cotter keys are in place. From here we move to the frame, making sure it is not cracked, damaged, or loose, and there are no illegal welds. From the frame we get to our leaf spring mounts, making sure they're not cracked, damaged, or loose, and no illegal welds. Following that is the leaf spring, not cracked, damaged, or loose, and no illegal welds on that. From the leaf spring we then get to our U-bolts. They're not cracked, damaged, or loose, making sure there's no shiny metal or rust indicating they're loose, and it has the leaf spring properly fastened to the steer axle. Down below is our steer axle, making sure it's not cracked, damaged, or loose, and there are also no illegal welds. And then behind that we have our tie rod, not cracked, damaged, or loose, no illegal welds. Following up to our shock tower, not cracked, damaged, or loose, and it is not leaking. Following from here we can see our brake line, our brake hose and our ABS line, making sure there's no abrasions, bumps, or cuts, and it is not leaking, which leads to our brake canister, not cracked, damaged, or loose, and is also not leaking. Following that to our push rod pin and slack adjuster, not cracked, damaged, or loose, and no more than 1 inch of play. Then leading into our brake pad and drum, not cracked, damaged, or loose, no contaminants, and at least 1/4 inch of brake pad. So looking at it, the rim on both sides, making sure not cracked, damaged, or loose, and no illegal welds. Looking at the bead on both sides, making sure properly beaded. Then inspecting your sidewalls, making sure there's no abrasions, bumps, or cuts, and they're not leaking. Moving up to our tire tread, no uneven wear or flat spots. 4/32 tread, must be virgin radial. Looking at our axle hub, not cracked, damaged, or loose, and is not leaking. Inspecting the axle nuts, not cracked, damaged, or loose, mounted securely. There's no shiny metal or rust spots to indicate loose. Then checking our valve stem, not cracked, damaged, or loose, cap is in place. And then checking your tire pressure, making sure you are between 100 to 120 psi. Alright, next we're going to do our side view of our truck. So once again, you do an overview of everything, make sure nothing intruding or extruding the cab, making sure you don't see any type of leaks around. And then we get into our mirror, making sure once again your mirror is not cracked, damaged, or loose. Leading down to our light below, making sure it is not cracked, damaged, or loose, and is the proper color. Now we move into our battery compartment. Open the compartment, do an observation of the batteries and the cables, making sure they are not cracked, damaged, or loose, and there is no corrosion. From there, we look at our DEF tank. So from the DEF tank, not cracked, damaged, or loose, and not leaking. The hoses from the DEF tank to and from the DEF tank are no abrasions, bumps, or cuts, and not leaking. Our DEF cap itself, open, inspect, make sure our rubber seal and chain are fastened, is not cracked, damaged, or loose. Following that, we move into the fuel tank, making sure it's not cracked, damaged, or loose, and it is not leaking. Your hoses from the fuel tank, there are no abrasion, bumps, or cuts, and is not leaking. The fuel cap itself, remove the cap, making sure the rubber seal and chain are properly fastened and is not cracked, damaged, or loose. And then looking in, you can see the tank strap and the tank liner. That is not cracked, damaged, or loose. Next, we're going to move into our compartment. First thing we're looking at in our compartment is that we have our 3 reflective triangles readily available. Next, we look for our 6 spare fuses, and then we get to our fire extinguisher, which is 10 VC or greater. It has to be properly mounted, fully charged, and the pin is in place. All right, starting at the back of the truck, first thing is giving a general overview, making sure there is nothing intruding or extruding the cab. Then moving to the DOT tape, making sure we have the proper amount on the back of the cab. Moving down to our working lights, making sure our working lights are not cracked, damaged, or loose, and of the proper color. Then we move over to our air lines and electrical lines. No abrasions, bumps, or cuts, and they're not leaking, and they're hanging the proper distance off of the frame. For our air line, making sure it is properly connected to the back of the truck, and the other end to the trailer of the truck, and inspect the glad hands by rotating 90 degrees and checking your rubber seal. Then we move to our electrical cord, looking at both sides of our electrical cord. Pull out and check to make sure there's no dirt or debris and your pins are properly placed on both ends. Moving down then to the mud flaps of the fenders, making sure they are not cracked, damaged, or loose. Checking your frame to make sure your frame is not cracked, damaged, or loose and has no illegal welds. Then we move to our control arm mount, making sure your control arm mount is not cracked, damaged, or loose, no illegal welds. Then to the control arm itself, not cracked, damaged, or loose, no illegal welds, mounted securely with pins. All right, starting out with our airbag, making sure there's no abrasions, bumps, or cuts, and is not leaking. From here we move to our tires. The tires are butted up properly, no dirt or debris. Moving then to our tire tread, no uneven wear or flat spots. Must have at least 2 32" tread and can be recaps, and checking your tire pressure, make sure between 100 and 120 psi. Next, moving on to the sliding 5th wheel, making sure it is not cracked, damaged, or loose, and pins are in the locked position. From here we go to our 5th wheel mount, not cracked, damaged, or loose, mounted to our 5th wheel plate, and the pin is in place. From here we look at our locking arm, which is secured in our lock position. And then the overview of our 5th wheel plate, no daylight and properly greased between that and the apron, making sure the apron is not cracked, damaged, or loose, and no illegal welds. And finally we get to our air lines and canister, no abrasions, bumps, or cuts, and is not leaking. Now from the back of the cab, we're going to double check and make sure our 5th wheel plate has no light through and it is properly greased. Down from there, we're going to find our kingpin. Make sure that is not cracked, damaged, or loose, no illegal welds. It is in the lock position with locking jaws in place. All right, finally at the back of the truck, we inspect our lights, making sure they are not cracked, damaged, or loose, and of the proper color. Move over to our license plate, not cracked, damaged, or loose. And then looking at our mud flaps and our mud flap bracket, not cracked, damaged, or loose. Proper amount off of the ground, and making sure we have proper amount of DOT tape. All right, now we're going to start with the trailer, making sure we do our visual inspection right away. Starting from there, we move to our headache rack right away, making sure it is not cracked, damaged, or loose, and properly fastened. Once we see a light, we're going to look, make sure it's not cracked, damaged, or loose, and of the proper color. And then moving down, we see that we have our DOT tape, must be at least 50% on the side of the trailer. Now from the back of the tractor, we're going to look and make sure we have the proper clearance to the trailer. From there, we also make sure we have a proper clearance to the foot of the trailer feet. Then we look at our cross member and our legs of the trailer, making sure they're properly fastened, not cracked, damaged, or loose. And then going to the gear drive section, making sure the legs properly operate. Gearing is good on the trailer. Now we move our inspection to the top of the trailer, making sure not cracked, damaged, or loose, in good condition and nothing will fall off. From there, we move to the frame and bracing of the trailer, not cracked, damaged, or loose, and no illegal welds. And then we find another marker light, making sure it is not cracked, damaged, or loose, and of the proper color. We can also then see our air lines for the trailer and the ABS lines, making sure no abrasions, bumps, or cuts, and is not leaking, and of the proper distance from the ground. Now we're going to inspect our sliding tandem axle, making sure it is in position with your pins locked. There's one on the front, one on the back, and also that our valve is in the locked position. With that, looking at then the mud flaps on the back, not cracked, damaged, or loose, and of the proper amount of clearance from the ground. Moving to the back of the trailer, first thing we're going to look at is our ABS light, making sure it is not cracked, damaged, or loose, and of the proper color. Moving on to our last marker light on this side, not cracked, damaged, or loose, and of the proper color. The full back of the trailer, both sets of brake lights on both sides and your marker lights in the middle are not cracked, damaged, or loose, and of the proper color. Making sure we have DOT tape on the back. Also inspecting the light for your license plate, not cracked, damaged, or loose, and of the proper color. Your license plate is not cracked, damaged, or loose, properly secured. Moving down to our DOT bumper, making sure that is not cracked, damaged, or loose, and no illegal welds, and that we have 100% tape across our DOT approved bumper. From this point, you'll go through your provided checklist. Once you have completed your checklist and I believe you've covered everything, you'll close the lid, climb inside the cab for the next portion. So from this point, we just entered the truck, making sure we have 3 points of contact the whole time getting in the truck. First thing you should do is grab your seatbelt, put your seatbelt on, inspect your seatbelt, making sure there's no cuts or frays, and ask your examiner to do the same. So from there, we then move to our driver's side, making sure the window is not cracked, damaged, or loose, and it is clear. From here, we move to the mirror on the driver's side, making sure once again that is not cracked, damaged, or loose, and it is properly adjusted. Going across to the hood mirrors, looking at both hood mirrors on both sides, making sure not cracked, damaged, or loose, and they are properly adjusted. Looking at your front windshield, or nothing illegal on the windshield. From here, we move to our passenger mirror, making sure that is not cracked, damaged, or loose, and also properly fastened. Looking around at the passenger window, making sure not cracked, damaged, or loose, and also clear. Looking at the floor, making sure there's nothing rolling around or in the way of the pedals. Checking your splitter, making sure the splitter is operating properly. Turn the key, making sure ABS and DEF lights and other lights come on and went off properly after the cycle. Alright, now we're going to perform a safe start, making sure we are in neutral, that our brakes are set. Push clutch in and perform your safe start. Once we have properly started, we're going to pump to 100 psi. We're going to roll down the window and tell our instructor to listen. We're listening for air leaks and the governor to kick in between 120 to 140 psi. We're at 100 psi now, so we're going to wait for our governor to kick in. While we're while we're waiting for our governor to kick in, we're going to begin our in-cab inspection. So first, we're going to look at our gauges as a general overview, that there's not cracked, damaged, or broken. We're going to check our oil pressure gauge, make sure we are at our proper level for oil pressure. Look at our RPM and tachometer and see if it is revving, as we have some proper revving there. Check our volts, make sure our volts are at our proper range. Check our water temperature gauge, make sure we are at the proper level there. Air pressure gauge and the primary and secondary, make sure they're working properly, which we're starting to make sure we're listening for the governor to kick out. We have our fuel gauge operating properly, currently full of fuel. Speedometer, we'll check at our 5 mile per hour gauge. We just had our governor kick in, as you should have been able to hear. So we have accessed our governor, make sure our governor is properly working. Continuing on, then we look at our DEF, making sure we have proper levels of DEF. Check heat, making sure your defrost and your in-floor heat are working by turning your heat on, making sure everything is working properly. Checking up front, making sure your defrost, and you can feel it on the floor. Making sure our hazards are working properly. Check your high beams from your lights, pulling back and depressing, making sure the gauge is showing that your high beams are on, turning your high beams back off. Do our left turn signal, signaling left. Do our right turn signal. We have signaling right. Inspect your wipers, make sure those are working properly. With the wipers then, we check that we have wiper fluid and that it is displaying properly and cleaning the window for you. Check your city horn, make sure you can hear it, and then inspect your air horn, make sure that is also working properly. After completing that part, we can push our clutch in, put the truck back into gear, turn our key off, let everything turn off, turn our key back to the on position, and dump our air. From here we will begin the process of the ALE portion of our Gale test. So the first part, we are going to do our applied test, making sure we lose no more than 4 psi in 1 minute. So we'll apply the brakes and ask your instructor to keep track for 1 minute that you have not lost more than 4 psi. Now that the time has came up, the instructors inform you that you have surpassed 1 minute. You inform them how much psi, and you can release the brakes from there, stating that you have held psi for the proper level of time. Alright, now we're going to perform the L part of our Gale test, the leak down test. We're going to pump down and the alarm will go off around 55 psi. We need to make sure we're watching for it. Our alarm's going off, but we need to make sure both lights are indicating that they are below that 55 psi, around that 55 psi. Now we're going to do our E, or our emergency portion. We're going to pump down between 20 and 45 psi, and the emergency brakes will kick on and pop out our brakes. And we see that our brakes have now popped out, leading us to the completion of our Gale test. Now we perform a safe start again, making sure we're neutral, our brakes are set, and push the clutch in and start. We're going to build pressure back up to govern to kick out between that 120 to 140 psi. After completing the Gale test and restarting to build pressure, we'll have the instructor step out and I'll begin to tell him what I'm inspecting. So first we're going to start with inspecting our marker lights up top, making sure you're pointing and letting them know what you're working at. Next we'll move to our left turn signal, instructing which way you're going for the instructor to see, then the right turn signal. Then we would move to our lights, making sure our headlights are on, checking then after that your flashers are working, also with your lights looking at the high beams as well. Then you would ask the instructor to go to the back of the tractor, and you will do your left turn signal, followed by your right turn signal, making sure your brakes are working and your hazards are working, and then put it into reverse and ask them to inspect to make sure your reverse light is working, all while listening that your reverse is sounding as well. Alright, at this point we're going to perform our tug test. First we're going to test our trailer, so we're going to put it into gear. We're going to push in our air here, and then we're going to lightly pull to see if our trailer is holding us back. Our trailer caught, which means we have performed the tug test properly and everything is working there. Now we're going to switch it around. We're going to pull in and do a tug test on the truck itself. Once again, leaving it in gear, releasing the clutch, making sure our brakes are working properly, which we have engaged and it is holding us back. And now we're going to perform our 5 mile an hour brake check. I'm going to make sure I have both pushed in, put that in gear, and we're going to get up to 5 miles an hour. While getting up to the 5 miles per hour, we're going to be watching the speedometer, make sure it works, making sure it brakes work, and it does not pull side to side. So get up to your 5 miles per hour. Our speedometer is working. We're at 5 miles an hour. Press our brakes, make sure our brakes are applying. And everything is fastened. We did not have any pulling side to side, so we have completed our 5 mile an hour brake test. From this point, I'll put it back into neutral, release the brakes, I'll let off the clutch, and look at your inspection sheet to make sure you have completed your in-cab portion properly.
Lake Area Technical College, changing lives and launching careers. To learn more about programs and admissions, visit lakeareatech.edu.